So then King David, thanks, Nam, for the reminder. Okay, and this was just an introduction to the morning study that I sent out to you today. So now the rule of thumb was the new king was responsible for killing the previous king's family so that there would never be a usurper to his throne. But David made a promise, a specific promise to Jonathan, his best buddy, his Anne of Green Gables, his bosom buddy. He said, I'll always be there. I'll always take care of your family. Because, and you say, well, where did this friendship and where did this depth come from? Oh, my friend. Oh, how the stories are layered on top of one another. In order to understand the joy of the tribe of Benjamin, Jonathan, and the tribe of Judah, King David, and their friendship, and they're willing to Jonathan to give up his position as the king for King David, goes all the way back to the story of Joseph. Joseph, that's right. Whenever Benjamin was getting ready to be turned over to be a slave to Joseph, and then Judah stands up for him and puts his neck on the line. He's got his back. He's got his six. He's his six. He's his bunker buddy. So you look at the story and you go, okay, so Judah supports Benjamin, even though at one point Judah was totally against Joseph. And Joseph and Benjamin are brothers through through Rachel. But Judah has a change of mind. And he stands up for Benjamin and he puts his neck on the line. Centuries later, Jonathan from the tribe of Benjamin says to the one from Judah, I'm the rightful heir, just as Benjamin would have been, because Joseph was gone. So the firstborn status would have gone to the nextborn. And Benjamin gives that up to Joseph. And in this story, Jonathan gives it up to Judah, to David. And David says, I will forever show kindness to the house of Saul. So when David becomes king and Saul has already killed himself, okay, fallen upon the sword by an Amalekite, now he ends up going back, and David goes looking through the house of Saul. And as he goes into the house of Saul, he says, is there anybody here within the house of Saul that I can show kindness to? Well, as soon as Saul's household heard that the king was coming, they all knew that the king was getting ready to wipe out the entire family. To literally destroy, to kill the family so that there would be nobody who would even create a coup, a rebellion against King David. But David said, oh no, your friendship means more to me, which goes back and reminds you of the statement that I've shared with you before, the difference between an adult and a child. The difference between an adult and a child is an adult will always choose being right over relationship. And a child will always choose a relationship over being right. Talk about the most simple, profound way to know the difference between a child, and unless you become like little children, you can no wise enter into the kingdom. Choosing relationship over being right is more important than being right over relationship. But we get to be adults and we have so many hurts and so many pains that I've got to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. And what do we end up doing? We end up destroying relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. And then we create our own standards and our own everything, as I talked about last night with the golden calf. And really, the concept back there in chapter 32, just dealing with the reason why they made the golden calf is because of unfulfilled expectations, and they were unwilling to be vulnerable. And I detailed that out for you last night, and it's on your morning study. Okay, so now let's finish up this introductory story to Mephibosheth, so that when you actually listen to the song this morning, or sometime today, carried to the table, which I had never heard before, the Lord put it right in my path. I typed it in. Here was the song. It brought up Mephibosheth. With Mephibosheth, my favorite Bible character in the whole entire Bible, my favorite writer, my favorite hero is Moses. My favorite savior, my favorite God in the flesh is Yeshua. But when it comes to my favorite Bible character, because it tells the whole story of my life, it's Mephibosheth. So here comes King David. King David's coming to show goodness to the house of Saul, but they think that King David's coming to wipe out the house of Saul. So the nursing maid, picks up baby Mephibosheth, and guess what happens? She's running along, and as she runs along, she drops Mephibosheth. Not Mephibosheth's fault. Another person hurts Mephibosheth. Personalize this, okay? Another person hurts Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is now lame in his legs. 2 Samuel chapter 4. He's now lame in his legs. David comes along and he shows kindness to Mephibosheth. And he carries Mephibosheth to his table. And he says to Mephibosheth, he says, you know what? You will sit at my table forever. You will never, ever be taken away from my table. I will make provision for you because I made a promise to Jonathan, my best friend. Now, if we read the story of Mephibosheth, Mephibosheth doesn't do everything right. That's why in the morning study, I gave to you chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter. You could read the whole thing, but I wanted to encourage you, really, really encourage you in lieu of this morning's teaching to be able to say, that's me. That's my God. That's my King. So when many people think that the God of the Old Testament, which is a misnomer, there's no such thing as the Old Testament. There's no such thing as the New Testament, the way that we reference it, like there was a dividing line and God did it this way in the past and God does it this way in the past, because the old is still the new. It's the old and the new. It's just the covenant. So now, which is a misnomer, and it's done more damage than we shake a stick at. So this morning for me, as I was reflecting upon the goodness of God during the week, and there's a roof over my head and the rain was coming down and my chickies were laying eggs and I took food out there to them and let them out, and I was reflecting upon all the goodness of the week, and I thought about what I was teaching last night, which I hope you go back and listen to that recording, because at least based on the opinion of one person who was on the Zoom call, they said that was the best teaching I'd ever done. I didn't know if that was the case or not, but for that person, it must have hit them right where they were at. Because if you're like me, and I'm just telling you, and I know you are, because I know every single one of you, I'm telling you that one of the issues that we all have is we have this issue that I've done something so much that God is just ticked off and he never looks at me the same. And that's why I gave to you Isaiah 49, 15, and 16 last night. I hope those will be verses you memorize if you don't have those memorized at this point. Because the golden calf, where God says, I will never forget, I'll never forget when you came into covenant relationship with me at Mount Sinai. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget when you said, everything that you say, I will do. I'll never forget that. But along with that, it means that he'll never forget the golden calf incident. And it's not that he holds the golden calf incident against you, because I'm going to show you this morning. I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your blooming mind. When you stop to think and you say, I've done something so atrocious that not even God would forgive me. He hates me. He's holding me off at arm's distance. And I'm going to show you through the Torah, that section of scripture that everybody thinks is bondage. I'm going to show you that there's no passage in the entire New Testament that matches this passage with his compassion, his mercy, his forgiveness, his graciousness, his truthfulness, his longing, his characteristics of who he is. No passage anywhere in Paul's writings that even compares to what I'm going to show you with the golden calf situation. And so no matter where you are in your journey, no matter where, you may have had an atrocious week. You may have had a sinful week. You may have had a disappointing week. I'm telling you, God never forgets those things because he doesn't do it for the sake of holding it against you. He does it for the sake of never taking you for granted. This is really important. This is really important. There's one thing outside of one relationship in my life, I've never abandoned anyone out of one. And that was the mother of my children. I was a coward. Only one. Now, people have left me. I've never left anybody since then, ever. Because I don't want to take any relationships for granted. God has them in my life for a reason, for me to learn. Oh, and if I can teach them something, that's gravy. But they're in my life for me because I've got lessons to learn from them. I never take them for granted. I woke up this morning, I don't take for granted the roof over my house, the fact that, not my house, the roof over my head, the fact that every time my key goes into the ignition, and I always pray, no exception to the rule, Father, thank you for your faithfulness in starting my vehicle in order to be able to get me to transport from point A to point B. Thanking him for the food that I ate. I had 5 bowls of chili yesterday. And believe me, that chili knows how to work through your system. Giving thanks for God for that. The fact that I was in a warm bed. The fact that I woke up this morning. The fact that he put breath in my lungs. This is Shabbat. Never, ever, ever take anything for granted. Please never take anything for granted. Don't take your relationships for granted. Don't take your health for granted. Don't take your challenges for granted. Don't take anything for granted because God's using all of those. And because you love him, Romans chapter 8, and we know that all things work together for the good to them who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And if you love God, you'll keep his commandments. And you know that he's working everything out for good. For those he foreknew, he justified, predestined, called, glorified, that you might become conformed to the image of his dear son. Romans 8:29. Everything that's going on in your life, good, bad, and different, the way that you and I put value on it, everything is working out for the good. God's got a bigger plan. I'm just telling you me. I got to get off my little pity party, my little moody, tooty, fresh, and pooty mindsets. And I need to recognize, oh, my stars, I see, God, you're doing this. You're working inside of me. He's carried me to his table. I've been hurt, and I have hurt. I know what it's like to be on both sides. But he's carried me to his table, the king, not the one who was in rulership, the king has carried me to his table. He carried me to his table. He carried me to his table. Matthew chapter 8 tells us that there's coming a day when, and in Luke's account, you will find that he's going to gather people from the east and from the west, from the north, from the south. and they're going to sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the table. He carries you to the table. I really hope on this Shabbat, more than any other Shabbat, that this Shabbat will be a turning point for your life. It's already been a turning point for mine, because he brought something into my head that I didn't even know existed, a song that actually made me think of Mephibosheth and what God has done for me. And here I am on Shabbat reflecting upon his goodness in my life, in spite of my failures. That's a God I want to team up with. That's a group of people that I want to team up with. A group of people who go, oh, yep, boo-boo, mistake, you're right, oops. Lift you up, walk with you, experience victory. That's Mephibosheth. And when you read the story, I just want to encourage you, put yourself in the story. This is one of the reasons why, as I was sharing last night, this is one of the reasons why most of us don't really go too far in our relationships with God. Oh, we've got it here. But we don't put ourselves in the story so that we know how to respond and live by faith. So I'm hoping and praying that today, the direction that we go is going to be something that will trip your trigger. That when it's all said and done, you'll be able to say, oh, my stars. That is the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is the one who's brought me into covenant relationship. I'm no longer a stranger. I'm no longer a foreigner. I'm now part of his covenant. I've said, whatever you say, I will do. And that's what I want to take you into this morning. So let me stop this recording. Thanks, Nan, for encouraging me to record it. Let me come back and open it up for any types of prayer requests or praise from you this morning. And then we'll come back and we'll do a teaching, and hopefully it'll be the bomb diggity.